Welcome back and welcome to the second part of today's conference. I'm going to open us with a prayer from the Corrymeela Community before we continue our reflection together. A prayer of shelter and shadow. We know that sometimes we are alone and sometimes we are in community. Sometimes we are in shadow and sometimes we are surrounded by shelter. Sometimes we feel like exiles in our land, in our languages, and in our bodies. And sometimes we feel surrounded by welcome. As we seek to be human together, may we share the things that do not fade: generosity, truth-telling, silence, respect, and love. And may the power we share be for the good of all. We honor God, the source of this rich life, and we honor each other, storyful and lovely. Whether in our shadow or in our shelter, may we live well and fully with each other. Amen. As some of you might know, during the COVID season, I began a podcast called Psalms for the Spirit. It was a project that came out of a desire to understand a little bit more how the Psalms help people through difficult times, because it was something that I had heard over and over again as I'd sung the Psalms with my group, Celtic Psalms, and as we had shared this music with so many people, we heard over and over again how the Psalms had carried people through difficult times. And I wanted to understand how and why that was. What was it about the Psalms that actually really meant something and helped and maybe even healed some of the hurts that people were carrying? So since early 2021, I've been interviewing various people about their experiences with the Psalms and which ones stand out to them, which ones have helped them, and how and why that is the case. So I'd like to play you a little bit of one of those podcasts that features the guest, Paul Hutchinson, who is a storyteller and mediator based in Northern Ireland, from Northern Ireland. I hope you can understand his accent. And he is just a wise and thoughtful soul, somebody who grew up in the evangelical tradition and became a Quaker later on in his life. In our podcast conversation, he talked about how he had a difficult time finding his place as a teenager and really railed up against everything and just wanted to find some sort of sense of belonging, a sense of place, and wanted to know that he was heard, that he was loved. He was just looking for something to lift him up, to pull him out of the pit, as he said. So for him, it was the words of the band U2 that really spoke into his heart. So if he had been going back over his songscape of his childhood, this would have been one of them that came to the surface for him, and perhaps one of the most important songs in his life. So a U2 version of Psalm 40. So hear him talk a little bit about that experience of discovering that psalm and what it meant to him.
I knew I was against, and I was agonizing because I didn't know what I was for. So I was desperately pushing against every wall to see if it would stand up to me. I was desperate for the wall to hold. And at one point, the band U2 became important to me, and their song 40, based on Psalm 40. And every gig would end with Psalm 40. And I didn't quite know the significance of it. But, they shout, I will sing a new song. It's all about, you brought me up out of the pit, out of the mud and slime. How long to sing this song? And it really spoke to me. And I couldn't have said, is this God? Is this the Psalms? And yet I was responding not just to the melody, not just because it was who was speaking, something was calling me. And so I linked Psalm 40 to that journey, to sing a new song. I was desperate to sing a new song. So I was fairly lost, and something inside was saying, you can be found. And these songs and psalms were saying, this is a song for us all, that you can find your place in the world. And I was desperate to find that. And these songs, as I now look back on, some of them were not even the whole of the psalm, were sometimes naive, and yet, despite all that, there was something that was, I think, well, I now would say the divine, that God was saying, Paul, you are beloved, and you're welcome. And I could now articulate that through theology, through experience, through devotions, through different practices. And so, in many ways, the Psalms were part of this life-saving kind of series of occurrences that took me out of, like Psalm 40, lift me up out of the mud. And I thought, I'd like to be lifted up out of the mud here. Anytime you want.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So I'd like to ask you a question that comes out of that podcast conversation. What is a song that lifted you up out of the pit? What is a song that helped you through a difficult time? What is a song that gave you hope and inspiration at a time when you really needed it? Now, as we look through the past few years, decades, I'm sure we can all come up with many times in which we had various challenges, personal challenges, communal challenges. Only you know what your own personal challenges were, so that's something you can spend a little bit of time reflecting on. As a world, we obviously have gone through the pandemic in the past few years, and that's impacted all of us in different ways, but each and every one of us. I know that today is a big anniversary day in Japan of the earthquake and tsunami that hit on the 11th of March in 2011, and how that drastically changed so many people's lives. So as you think about those particular events, as you consider events in your personal life, was there a song that helped you to get through that time? Was there a song that lifted you out of the pit, as Paul quoted from the Psalms? Was there a new song that came to you just when you needed it the most? So I'm going to leave a few minutes here for us to look back and scan through and see whether any songs helped us to get through a difficult time. I want to share a song with you that came out of the COVID period. I put together an album of songs of psalms set to Celtic melodies, our fourth album during the COVID period. And it was a particularly meaningful project for me because, there were so many limitations when it came to music, and singing was something that I dearly missed. I especially missed the opportunity to sing with other people. So I was delighted when I got a chance to sing with my dear friends, the McGraths, and we were able to record during the summer of 2020 when we had just a little window of time when we could get together safely. There weren't as many restrictions that particular summer. And there were a few songs that really helped me through that time. But one that stands out for me is one called Love and Mercy. And it comes from Psalm 85, which is a song about a vision for the future, a vision for what can be. So I'd like to share that song with you, just so you can hear the sounds of the harmonies that really lifted me out of the pit at that time. The possibility of singing with other people, the possibility of love and mercy coming together, peace and justice greeting each other with a kiss, kindness and goodness, all being a part of that picture of a vision of what could be, gave me hope. It helped me through that time. And then as I close the song, God will bring healing and the people will sing. So those are the parts I added to the song because I just believe that that's what God does. As God gives us that hope and inspiration, God brings healing. And then the joy of people coming together is that we're allowed to sing together again.
For love and mercy shall evermore meet, and justice and peace shall greet with a kiss. From the ground shall spring kindness, goodness will shine from the skies, and God will bring healing, and the people will sing.
For love and mercy shall evermore meet, and justice and peace shall
justice and peace shall greet with a kiss. From the ground shall spring kindness, goodness will shine from the skies, and God will bring healing, and the people will sing, and God will bring healing, and the people will sing.
A reading from Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. The Lord your God is in your midst. The mighty one will save. God will rejoice over you with gladness. God will quiet you with love. God will rejoice over you with singing. Now read that one more time to take it in again. Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 17. The Lord your God is in your midst. The mighty one will save. God will rejoice over you with gladness. God will quiet you with love. God will rejoice over you with singing. So as we close this portion of the conference, we're going to have a little bit of time to chat together as a bigger group to see what has emerged during this time of reflection, personal as well as small group reflection. We're going to start beginning to pay attention to what the new song is that we hear and that also God sings through and in us. So with those beautiful words from Zephaniah, we listen for the song that God sings in us and over us. So what is the new song that is being sung in our hearts by the Spirit?